I'm sure that some of the people who know what I've been through to make this tape possible realize that it has involved terrible suffering of personal nature. However, I want to borrow this consideration that I'm doing this out of some kind of madcap revenge. No, I'm simply um, a journalist of sorts who has made some unpleasant realizations from evidence that's being kept under wraps. Now, Hollywood interacts with our entertainment media. I think everybody realizes that. But in a Hollywood movie, the interaction between the entertainment media can be so bold as to take control of your television set. It can result in a society of robots. And when the movie is over, you laugh and say, of course, that's not true. We struck the set. But some clue as to how far they're willing to go within the Matrix and the cast of characters in the Matrix. The Matrix, as you may remember if you've read about it, was a movie where perception was everything. As soon as you realized that your senses were deceiving you, you could make the leap into understanding what was happening, and then you became a danger to the controlling faction within the society. After a movie like that, you're supposed to snap your fingers and snafu the set and believe the people who conceived of all that would be incapable of politics. The people who tortured me and who force fed me a nerve agent, the Watton makers, that's a very important strategic name, Watton makers, because I was being taken into custody by the Israelis as part of a secret alliance with Japan to punish me for the atom bomb. A child from the nuclear navy named Jimmy C. The winemakers had on their wall poster called Disneyland After Dark. You're not supposed to believe that after they strike the set of The Matrix, they go home to something which is surreal and engage in politics. Well, in reality, the letters that I found by Gail Carolyn Burson suggest a European circle of intellectuals with access across the board, leapfrogging across German lines, Russian lines, British lines, forming an intelligence network, sort of with NATO, but with American values marginalized, conceiving of a way of thinking that Americans cannot protect themselves from. What would this way of thinking be? Well, if you believe the script of Gail Carolyn Burson, this way of thinking is a Nazi value code. In the letters, the Japanese pornographic industry helped J. Edgar Hoover make tapes of Martin Luther King having extramarital affairs. And they went gunning for his domestic tranquility, much the way that the Watton makers impinged a nerve agent to try to change my personality from within. And as we know, the assassins behind the script shot JFK out of jealousy of him, because obviously if we are to believe their propaganda that women prefer them, they wouldn't have to kill, they wouldn't have to cheat with nerve agents, they wouldn't have to be driven to invade privacy in order to humiliate. But we know from the people who are promoting the secret ideas of the script that Paul McCartney's catty brand of female feminine politics of backbiting and slurring and sleeping with the enemy and so on are part of this way of thinking that you cannot protect yourself from. Now, in trying to answer the question, who was Gail Burstyn, we arrive at the question, was Russia involved in the murder of Martin Luther King? Let's look a moment at what was happening in the year 1968. This was the year of Czechoslovakian intellectual uprising known as Prague Spring. The crackdown against Prague Spring came between the murder of Bobby Kennedy and the release of Back in the USSR. King was killed in April, Bobby was killed in June, Prague Spring was cracked down on in August, and the Rabid released Back in the USSR on the White Album. If we believe the National Review's implied evasion related explanation, pseudo explanation, representation of their reality about my being in DC when Reagan claims he was shot. It was to make money for Yoko Ono. But Ono's place in the White Album was supposedly to make it white because that's a symbol of Japanese mourning. They released it November 22nd, 1968. But it's full of derision about zapping KFK between the eyes. They blew his mind out in the car and so on. So, in order to make the Matrix like leap of getting into their perceptions, to free yourself, free your mind, is to see that Lenin used a body double, who was a hocus pocus, smoke and mirrors trick of Houdini intelligence system by this extra European Ouspensky circle, who see their control tower and hidden hand as being from the fourth dimension. And it goes back to for example, the original actress who approached me for this Jewish community that Gail Burstyn came from. These were Jews from the Rodef Sholem who had a large sign, Save Soviet Jewry. Was Me Shall Lubin, which is a play on We Shall Overcome, Me Shall Lubin, that you find in Putin. Vladimir the Impaler, Me Shall Lubin. The men who attacked me were named Ronnie and Casper, just like Reagan and Weinberger. So you know that Kissinger meeting with Putin is nothing unusual for this leapfrog aristocracy movement, who have, by the way, at their fingertips the American mercenary extremists who've been shooting people in Las Vegas and who released COVID-19. In fact, the perverts in Seattle have settled on a course of action that puts up a sign that basically says, join the club, then points to the gas chambers. Join the club, points to the gas chambers. They poisoned me in the mouth. You know, so where did the girl who fulfilled the script come from? We know she came from Penis Sinfield and Peni Sinfield and Gabriel. But she's now at Oxford. So she was from the Italian Communist Party. So obviously Putin was in on that. Whether Navalny was or not, we don't know. But it got the giggles of law enforcement in Pennsylvania. So law enforcement itself was rendered powerless. Even though they were warned that this was about the AIDS attack, they let them come and kill their grannies with COVID-19 and leave their calling card. So, I mean, there were murders on this set. The Ukrainian woman was killed on this set, like Brandon Lee was killed on the set of The Crow. The Letter Arrives by Crow was a notorious detection of the American underclass in Pittsburgh. The Crow Flies, they put out a band and had people, you know, porno sign licky chops on Mount Desert Island. So, the insatiability of the Nazi sexual mentality for doing humiliation by killing Searcy Kennedy, for example. I mean, talk about a base act. McCartney comes in, he plays, we'll take that piece and we'll put in this piece. And it's been all I can do to keep poor Greta out of this. And acceptance by counter accusation has been the name of their game. They come in and Swami Nostra comes in and says, no, don't accuse Reagan. No, don't see the truth about the Beatles. Accuse the innocent American suck. And the American suck is being manipulated by neuroplasm. And the black man is saying, see, we're more masculine than the suck. And this is the Nazi mentality that's behind this operation. So even when you look at the Catholic workers, like the whole apparatus that's in place in Seattle, you have Don Timmerman getting the most descriptive letter of the suffering that penalized Gabriel and Sinfield inflicted on somebody who trusted them. That's all I did. I trusted them. They put me through neurological ripper hatter, remorseless neurotasing over and over again. My face was pressed to cement. I was vomiting. My eyes were ocular gyrating, and to impress, Camille Lebedev, the new generation that McCartney's still brand of caddy politics is still in charge. So you see the alliance because Sean Penn smelt, um, dialecticals in Ukraine while Putin was spitting the midges. So you see, it goes back to the idea of that putrid assassin Amanda Harcourt, who's always playing "Oh, I love you, man" stuff. She talked about the treason of secular machines back in '83 and '84 when the whole was greater than the sum of its parts. They were blowing on the fire. The flames began to catch and the wind blew it higher, right? This was their shrieking exterminationist gig. Treason of sucking machines is the idea we'll pluck seriously and put in Greta to represent the world, and the playboy will follow whoever's available. And this is their snickering and deceitful con game for the Nazi Secret Service that has leapfrogged Oliver Stone meeting with Putin and putting up this huge ultimatum in the Ukraine for the Green Party, basically, who put the rubber stamp of assassination of my father on his obituary, and who their loyalists in Pittsburgh are the criminal underclass, the $50 hirings who attack anybody blind. So I have no honor to begin with, car thieves, Lucifers, and so forth. Needless to say, Temple University's Black Study program and blacks in the Catholic hierarchy, but most important, the precious Catholic Central Catholic, church fathers' favorites like the Carl family and Vince Irene, who goes out and redeems the pedos and then threatens the victims with, pornographic peep for Seattle's perverts who are playing this game of join the club pointing at the gas chambers, with Jay Inslee and his mouth poison, COVID-19 and all that. So the question, was Russia involved in the um, assassination of Martin Luther King, goes back to the question of how these Nazis are establishing the preeminence of quality of life and riches for the Trumpy Tune show. Lenin used to brag that Abbey Roads during Prague Spring, he didn't say that, but during Prague Spring was the place to be for hang out for sex and stuff. And I have no idea whether it's true. The lusty they put on me was pretty something, even now. So you have these assassins in the forms of weaponized women performing, character assassination against the entire United States system with these inside cults of extreme right wing who are allied, not so mysteriously, with the oligarchs in Russia. It's not that mysterious when you see that power was closing ranks to thin out the herd of the population, and to get the job done, they promoted this good old boy black master of ceremonies with his piping hot. Spike Oldley, so Spike Oldley, Columbia, and the robber barons of the left, like Noam Chomsky, pontificating about it while keeping silent about the whole thing. And the mantra that Lenin's will is Casper the Friendly Ghost, who's, Jesus is more powerful than Hitler, and he forgave Hitler. This is their thing. It's in Franklin Graham's, Rebel with a Cause or something. You talk about Lazarus being back from the dead. He's no longer Hitler. He's changed his name because Hitler is back from the dead. And they embrace him and weep him and make him chaplain of the executioner's armies. And Franklin Graham even says that he praised Jesus for freeing up the land for Jesus after the Jim Jones massacre in Guyana. This is the sort of thing that the wigglers, like Robert Fripp of King Crimson, come shimmy wiggle selling all the time. That's what they've been up to. King Crimson came out right after King was done in. That's why King Crimson. Get it? It's a brazen in your face statement. And it was planned. You can see that perfectly clearly from the Gail Burston letters. I almost said Greta Thunberg letters. But Greta was born into this trap. She's a strong, healthy girl who can take care of herself. I think people should pay attention to what she's doing. I have nothing but admiration for Greta.